بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته وتبع هداه إلى يوم الدين وبعد. So alhamdulillah, we continue to read and try to understand the meanings intended by Sayyidi Muhyiddin al-Qadir al-Jilani radiallahu anhu in his book Al-Fath al-Rabbani al-Fath al-Rahmani, the divine revelation or sublime revelation and divine outpourings. So, as we've mentioned before, we see certain themes emerge throughout the discourses that Shaykh Abd al-Jilani tends to offer instruction upon and emphasize. And these meanings generally return back to the relationship of the servant of God, the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his or her Lord. And he has instructed us that just like we have to practice and interpret the ahkam al-taklifiyya, those rulings that deal with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to do and those things that he has commanded us to avoid, there's also the commands that are related to al-ahkam al-takwiniyya. So takween means those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sha'a wa qaddara, things that he has intended, that he has made happen, and that he has made part of our everyday existence. And so we as human beings, we are in this sort of constant struggle to reconcile that which apparently is at our disposal, so our ability to choose or not to choose, and to sort of manage our own destiny, as it were, for lack of a better word. So that feeling or that sensation that we believe we have, and to reconcile with that as believers that which we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala فَعَّالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will execute that which he intends, and that there is no irada, that there is no will or intent that can defy the will or intent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the reconciliation between those two things is something that generally we, in our limited capacity as human beings, tend to struggle with. And I would put forth that this struggle only becomes exacerbated when we try to reconcile it rationally, when we try to put to use an expression, wrap our heads around the idea of we get to choose, but at the same time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is choosing for us, and how does that work, and so forth. So what the scholars of Islam have put forth, more or less, I would say, based upon consensus, that they pretty much agree about this, though they may have different ways of articulating it, that this falls more squarely in the realm of the spiritual domain than it does in the rational one. So rational one as in the logical one. So we don't say that spirituality defies logic, but we do say that spirituality, or the realm of the spirit, can sometimes transcend logic or supersede logic in some way. So those things that we can't reconcile rationally, they can be reconciled in the realm of the spirit, because ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an entity that cannot be rationalized. In other words, there is a realm of theology that talks about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, sometimes referred to as negative theology. So we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not temporary. He's everlasting. We know that he didn't have a start or a beginning, that he was always there. So huwa qadim. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and not many, and he cannot be divided into parts. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like anything of his created beings in terms of that which refers to their physicalities. So he doesn't have a size or a direction, and cannot be quantified in that way. So the basis of creed or aqidah is a negation, just like we say in the Shahada, La ilaha illallah. So the La ilaha is half of theology, right? And then illallah, or at least a quarter of it, if you want to, or a third of it, if we look at the Shahadateen. So La ilaha, right? There is no deity. That means we negate anything that could be a deity except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also negate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not. And then illallah is the affirmation. So rationally, we don't have an issue with La ilaha. That's quite easy, or let's say easier to comprehend, to interpret, because it's absolute. Right? Allah is not two, he's one. That's an absolute statement. Allah is not like any of his creation. He doesn't have a direction or take up space or anything like that. That's an absolute term. He is beginningless, he is endless. These are absolute things. He cannot be divided into parts, right? He is one, indivisible. These are absolute things. But then the illallah, right? So then who is Allah, or what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do we understand the other side of theology, which is positive theology? So Allahu Sami' wa Basir wa Alim wa Qadir wa Murid wa Hayy. So those attributes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intent, and he is omniscient, and he's omnipotent, and he Sami' and Basir, right? And he's mutakallim. So he sees all things, he hears all things, and he mutakallim, and he communicates. He has kalam, a sifa, an attribute of kalam. So then we get into these attributes, and they're harder to reconcile, especially when we have similar or seemingly similar attributes. But we have kalam, natakallam, we speak, we see, we hear, we have knowledge, we have intent, we have seemingly power over things. So it's here where even the theologians admitted that the way that we understand God's attributes in these what are called sifat al-ma'ani, or the meaningful attributes or the positive attributes, is that we understand them in the most complete and perfect way that any human being can understand them. So it's even kind of a vague way to say it. So here clearly then there's a crossover into the realm of spirituality, into the realm of that which can be tasted or seen more clearly and more vividly with the eye of the heart, rather than the eyes of the head, and rather than the intuition or rationality of the mind or the intellect. So that is kind of our struggle when we try to do that. So the Shaykh, when he emphasizes al-ilm ma'a al-amal ma'a al-sabr ma'a al-ikhlas, right, it kind of goes through those things. He says knowledge, and then do by what you have knowledge, and have patience with things that don't go your way, and then work towards having ikhlas, sincerity in your deeds, and then you'll find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ليس فقط من حيث العلم ولكن من حيث الذوق والشهود. So not just in terms of an intellectual knowledge of him, but a more dhawqi, shuhudi, or a more spiritual grasp of the divine. And that's basically what most of these discourses, and I would say most of the book, is trying to get at. Is trying to get us to reach that, and to take us there. So we begin with the 40th discourse, where he says, and he begins with hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: إذا أراد الله بعبد خيرا فقهه في الدين وبصره بعيوب نفسه، أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. And then he says, الفقه في الدين سبب لمعرفة النفس. من عرف ربه عز وجل عرف الأشياء كلها، به تصح له العبودية والعتق من عبودية غيره. لا فلاح لكن لا نجاة لك حتى تؤثره على غيره. تؤثر دينك على شهوتك وآخرتك على دنياك وخالقك على خلقك هلاكك في تقديم شهوتك على دينك ودنياك على آخرتك وخلقك على خالقك أو خلقك على خالقك اعمل بهذا وقد كفاك أنت محجوب عن الحق عز وجل لا إجابة لك الإجابة إنما تكون بعد الاستجابة إذا أجبته بالعمل أجابك في وقت سؤالك له وجود الزرع إنما يكون بعد الزراعة ازرع حتى تحصد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. So let's look at that from the very beginning. 40th discourse, page 240. Prophet ﷺ is reported of having said, when Allah wishes his servant well, he instructs him in religion and makes him see his faults or his own faults. So knowledge, fiqh of religion is a means to knowledge, ma'rifah of the self, the nafs. He who knows or arafa his Lord will come to know all things through him as he experiences servitude or ubudiyah to him and emancipation from all other servitude. There is no success, falah, or salvation, najat, for you until you give him priority over all others. You must give priority to your religion over your carnal desires, shahawat, to your interest in the hereafter over your interest in this world, and to your creator over his creatures. Your destruction lies in putting your lust or shahwa before your religion, your worldly interest before your interest in the hereafter, and creatures before your creator. Put this advice into practice and it will prove to be all you need. It will prove to be all you need. You are screened off from the haqq, from the Lord of truth. You receive no answer. The answer comes only in response to the petition. If you respond to him with work, he will respond to you when you make your request to him. The crops come into being only after the farm work. You must do the farm work so that you may reap the harvest. As the Prophet ﷺ has said, the world is the mazra, or the cultivated field or farm of the hereafter. So this hadith, it's cited by al-Bukhari mu'allaqan. In other words, Imam al-Bukhari includes it in one of his chapter headings without a sanad, but the meaning is considered to be sound, and it has some other variations in wording. Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi ddin. That's one in Bukhari that I remember. Whoever, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desires good of his servant, yufaqihu fi ddin, gives him fiqh of the deen. And here, fiqh of the deen refers to the two types of fiqh. So many people, when they hear the word fiqh, they think, oh, okay, that means like legal rulings and, what are the integrals of wudu and integrals of prayer and zakat and, nawaqid al-wudu, what nullifies one's state of ablution or wudu. And that's true. That is part of al-fiqh fi din in the general sense. But there's another part of al-fiqh fi din that is not just al-fiqh fi ahkamillah, al-fiqh fillah, or al-fiqh anillah. So understanding the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his legal rulings, which means al-ahkam at-taklifiyya, so that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon those who meet the conditions for obligation. So if you're of sound mind and balagatka da'wah, and the message of Islam has come to you in a clear enough sense that you comprehend and understand it, and you are free from any mawani', anything else that would prevent you from practicing the individual practices of Islam, then it's obligated upon you to do those things that are obligated upon you. So like the 5 prayers and like fasting Ramadan. If you have a condition that precludes you from doing it, like if you have a sickness or you're traveling, or a woman on her menstrual cycle, then you don't fast the day of Ramadan. And in terms of the prayer, if you're unable to pray it in its most complete way, for example, if you're unable to stand up, then which was normally an obligation, then you may pray sitting down. These are called al-ahkam al-taklifiyya. And this is called al-fiqh, part of al-fiqh fi din, the deen al-mu'amala. But the other part of that, or the other component of that, is al-fiqh fillah, or fiqh anillah. So the fiqh of understanding God, understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means understanding the manifestation of His attributes and the understanding that all acts are certainly singular in that they are the sole creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah creates the acts and we acquire them. And when we acquire them, we choose to acquire them. We are not compelled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to acquire these acts. He creates them on our behalf upon the time that we choose to do them. And this acquisition or kasb is manat al-taklif, as they say. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us into account when we do anything. So understanding that is part of al-fiqh, an understanding of the deen, and also understanding that وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, right? My success will not be except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. There is no strength or power save Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this will give, as I say, يَثْلُجُ الصُّدُورِ, it will give you a coolness of heart, right? تحت جريان القدر, تحت جريان النوازل. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see His qadar, when you see that which He has sent down from al-ahkam al-takwiniyya, from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says be and it is, whether we like it or we don't like it, whether we want to accept it or we don't accept it, then we see that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is manifesting His attributes. And they could be the attributes of jalal, of magnificence, like al-qahr, al-qahhar, right? Sometimes you are adamant about not doing a particular thing or doing a particular thing, but for whatever reason, it doesn't go out the way that you want. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-qahhar, right? So maybe you have a mushahada, you have a taste or a witnessing of Allah's overwhelming attribute, right? The manifestation of His overwhelmingness. Right? There's a qahr. Or al-muntaqim, right? The one who avenges. Or al-Jilani wal-Ikram, the one of magnificence and ikram and ennoblement. And then sometimes you see the attributes of mercy and of beauty and of ease and of lutf and of gentleness and so forth. So هذا يعرف عندهم بالفقه بالله, to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to understand His ahkam, what He sends down in terms of His qada wal qadar. That's why He says here, al-fiqhu fi ad-dini sababun li ma'rifati an-nafs. That also is part of it. So when you understand the deen and understand your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you understand the nafs, right? Then you understand that there is this entity that cannot be separated from you, that is actually you, that is part of you, that is not always going to acquiesce, and is not going to submit, and in fact will be rebellious and will fight you tooth and nail for most of the way, until you overpower the nafs, until the nafs itself then acquiesces to your spirit, to your qalb, to your heart, and more or less behaves and goes along with in the manner that your heart and your spirit stipulate. So من عرف ربه عز وجل عرف الأشياء كلها. So if you know your Lord, then you know the reality of things. به تصح له العبودية والعتق من عبودية غيره. This is how your servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is validated, and you are emancipated or liberated from the ubudiyya, the servitude, to anything else. Because if you know, not just ilmiyan, not just by an intellectual acknowledgement, but you also know that nothing has the power to bring benefit to you or to bring harm to you except by Allah's leave, except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His will, then why would you fear that thing or have hope in that thing? Then you place your true fear and your true hope into the one who has power over all those things, namely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا فلاح لكن لا نجاة لك حتى تؤثره على غيره. So there's no real success and no real salvation until you prefer Allah over all other things. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then becomes the priority. And sometimes we see this articulated as أن تجعل همك هما واحدا, to make your concern a sole concern, and that would be the concern for the seeking the pleasure of the divine, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he further kind of fleshes this out a little bit further down in the discourse, where he says, يا غلام كن بين يدي الحق عز وجل والآفات تنزل عليك أنت قائم على قدم محبته لا تتغير لا تزيلك الرياح والأمطار لا تخرق الرماح تكون ثابتا ظاهرا وباطنا قائما في مقام لا خلق فيه لا دنيا فيه ولا آخرة فيه لا حقوق فيه لا حظوظ فيه لا ألم فيه لا كيف فيه لا ما سوى الحق عز وجل فيه لا تكدرك رؤية الخلق ومؤنة العيال ولا تتغير بالقلة والكثرة ولا بالذم ولا بالجمد أو بالحمد لا بالإقبال ولا بالإدبار تكون معه من وراء معقول الإنس والجن والملك والخلق في الجملة. الصبر والإخلاص والصدق أساس لما قد شرحت لك تريدني أنافقك وألين لك في الكلام تفرح نفسك وتعجب وتظن أنها على شيء. So let's look at that. Page 241, the last paragraph. Be in the presence of the Lord of Truth as adversities descend upon you. While you are standing on the foothold of His love, you will not experience alteration. Neither winds nor rains will sweep you away, and spears will not pierce you. You will be steadfast outwardly and inwardly, ظاهرا وباطنا, standing in a place in which there are no creatures, in which there is neither this world nor the hereafter, in which there are no legal claims, حقوق, in which there are no chances or allotments of pleasurable soul, حظوظ, in which there is no pain, in which there is no question how, in which there is nothing apart from al-Haq, the Lord of Truth. You will not be troubled by the supervision of creatures or the burden of dependence. You will not be affected by little or much, not by blame or praise, not by coming or going. You will be with Him beyond the comprehension of human beings, of jinn, of angels, and of all creatures whatsoever. How fine is the saying of one of the wise, if you are going to be honest, well and good, but if not, do not follow us. Patience, sabr, and sincerity, ikhlas, and honesty, sidq, are a foundation for what I have described to you. So here he's describing the state of the one who has more or less embodied this idea of al-fiqh, both min hayth al-ahkam, so the understanding, comprehension, and practice of the deen, from in terms of the moral and ethical and legal obligations that Allah has placed upon you, and also from here the second component of how we contend with al-nawazil, right? Al-Fath tanzilu alayk. So adversities descend upon you, of how to deal with our circumstances, how to contend with our circumstances. And this place that he's describing, where there are, you're not moved by winds, and you're not moved by rain, and spears don't pierce your skin, and there's no dunya, there's no akhirah, there's no anything except al-Haq. There's nothing except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at first glance, you might read that and hear about that and say, well, that sounds kind of like a lonely place, right? This kind of seems to be very, exaggerated sort of spiritual detachment and isolation. But in reality, this is the place where you find true uns, right? We talked a couple sessions back about the root word of insan. Where does it come from? Hal min al-nisyan aw min al-uns. Does it come from forgetfulness, which is part of the human being, which is our sort of lower bestial aspect of who we are? Or does it come from al-uns, right, which is referring to the higher celestial aspect of who we are, because we have both of those things within us, every human being. So al-uns then is to seek intimacy, right? I think the best way to describe it is to want to go home, right? To feel that you're at home. And one might argue that the quest for all human beings, ultimately, whether they realize it or not, is they want to go home. They want to feel at home. They want to feel this is where they belong. This is where they should be. This is what they should be doing. And all the things that we can temporarily fill that void with, consumption and pleasures in life and different exotic foods and experiences, and people talk about, I want to live on the edge of life, so they actually have to do what are life-threatening or life-defying things to feel alive, jumping out of airplanes in a parachute, and parasailing, or extreme sports now is the word that they use. So all of those sorts of things, people want to feel like they're at home and they are on the true precipice of life. But I think the Shaykh describes it here. This place where you think you're alone, you're not. You will never feel alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you know that Allah is with you, then you are with Allah. إذا كنت معه فهو معك. إذا كنت معه فهو معك. If He is with you, or if you are with Him, then know that He is with you. And so this ma'iyya, right? Shaykh Abd has a whole book written about it. He called it Sirrul Ma'iyya, something like that. The secret of the ma'iyya. Miftah al-ma'iyya. The keys to the ma'iyya, the keys to feeling that I am with Allah and He is with me. Because that's the real home. And, when we experience a calamity, what are we instructed to say? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. In other words, to restate where home is. So, inna lillah, we are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And surely we are returning to Him as we speak. We are ever returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a reminder to us that all of this is temporary. It doesn't truly fill the void that we'll find within us, that all of us seek to fill. But what really fills it is to be with God, to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I want to now move on to the discourse after that. As I said, I'm going to try to do two discourses, more or less, in each session. So the 41st discourse, and he begins by saying, اعلم أن الأشياء كلها محركة بتحريكه ومسكنة بتسكينه إذا ثبت هذا له استراحة من ثقل الشرك بالخلق واستراحة الخلق منه لأنه لا يعيب عليهم ولا يطالبهم بشيء مما يلي إنما يطالبهم بما طالبهم به الشرع فحسب يطالبهم شرعا ويعذرهم علما جمعا بين الحكم والعلم رؤية فعل الله عز وجل في الخلق عقيدة لا ينقض بها الحكم وهو المقدر وهو المطالب. This actually is a very important section. It's directly related to what we just mentioned. And for those who are following the 41st discourse, that's on page 246. At the beginning, he says, know that all things are set in motion by His, capital H, yani Allah's dynamic action, and rendered motionless by His immobilizing action. Yani هو المحرك وهو المسكن. He's the one who makes things move. He is the makes the one things stay still. When this is predicated of Him, He is relieved of the burden of partnership, shirk with creatures, and creatures are also relieved of it, because He cannot find fault with them or hold them accountable for anything consequent on such a relationship. He demands of them only what the sacred law demands of them, and that is all. He holds them accountable with respect to the Sharia, or the sacred law, Shara, and absolves them with respect to knowledge by integrating the rule, the hukum, and the knowledge therein. Recognition of the working of Allah Azza wa Jal in creation is a tenet of belief by which the rule of law is not infringed. He is the one who ordains, al-Muqaddir, and he is the one who calls to account, al-Mutalib. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He shall not be questioned as to what he does, but they shall be questioned. So what does that mean? As we said in the beginning, that the two types of hukum, the two types of rulings, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yukallifuna bihi, that which he, what he describes here, yutalibuna biha, that which he requests of us, which is to adhere to the sharia, adhere to the shara, adhere to the commands and prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to perform the commands and to avoid the prohibitions. And then the other aspect is at-takwini, right? That's when he says to something be and it is. And so this mutalaba, as he says here, is that which Allah requires of you, nothing more, nothing less. But also the while, he is al-muharrik wal-musakkin. He is the one who makes things move, and he is the one who makes things stay still. هو القاهر فوق عباده. هو القاهر فوق عباده. He is the one who has the power and can compel فوق عباده, above his servants. والله خلقكم وما تعملون. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you and that which you do. So that haqiqah, right, which goes back here, it says to al-ilm, to the certain thing of knowledge, is not contravened or defied by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking us to follow the sacred law and having the mutalaba. So even though هو الذي يحركنا, he is the one who moves us and he always gave us life and creates that which we do and that which we don't do, nevertheless, upon us choosing to do a particular thing, Allah creates that act for us upon our choice, and then our acquisition of that act, which is called kasb in theology, which we acquire, this is where the mu'akhadha. So there's mutalaba and mu'akhadha. Mutalaba means Allah requests and asks of us. And mu'akhadha means, do we choose to defy the command or follow the command? Do we choose to avoid the prohibition or indulge in the prohibition? And then at that point, if there is no ikrah, there's no compulsion from any outside force, external force, there's no invalidating of one of the conditions of the mutalaba, of Allah requesting us, and those who are of sound mind, sound intellect, post-pubescent, balaghatna da'wah, we understand what Islam is, we understand what this command is, all of those things check. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the haqq al-mutalaba, then he has the right to request of us and ask us, and he also has haqq al-mu'akhadha. Haqq al-mu'akhadha means to take us to task, right? To choose to deal with us by his adl, by his justice, and that means take us to task and perhaps even chastise us. Or he can deal with us by his mercy, by his rahmah, and choose to forgive us and to pardon us. That's why whenever we finish an act of worship, especially the prayer, what is the first words that come out of our mouth? We say astaghfirullah, right? We seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to deal with us by his adl, by his justice, and what we are truly entitled to, what we deserve, we don't deserve anything. And this prayer that we think we're doing on his behalf, and somehow he gets a benefit from it, is nonsense. And so in astaghfirullah, we seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from even having that thought upon our mind that somehow he needs this. And nastaghfir min su'ul ada, right? We also seek forgiveness because we didn't do it in the proper way. And the most proper thing about, the most appropriate thing about worship is that it is sincere. And certainly to reach a level of sidq, right, which is the highest form of sincerity that the Shaykh talks about earlier, is something also that we pray for, right? We ask Allah to give us sidq, to give us sincerity, to make our a'mal khalisa liwajhillah, to be completely sincere for his sake. Then he goes on for a little bit to talk about some of the ideas of mahabba, about loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we'll just kind of summarize that in the interest of time. So he says هذا معتقد كل مسلم مؤمن موحد راض عن الله عز وجل موافق له في أقضيته وأقداره وصنعه فيه وفي غيره. هو غني عن نفسك وصبرك، لكن ينظر كيف تعمل في دعواك، هل تصدق أو تكذب. المحب لا يملك شيئا، يسلم الكل إلى محبوبه محبة أو محبة وتملك لا يجتمعان. المحب للحق عز وجل الصادق في محبته يسلم إليه نفسه وماله وعاقبته، ويترك اختياره فيه وفي غيره. لا تتهمه في تصرفه ولا تستعجله ولا تبخله. So he gives some of the indications of mahabba for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, this is the firm belief of every Muslim who is fully convinced, who affirms the unity, who is well pleased with Allah and in accord with Him in regard to His judgments, His decrees, His working in Him and in others. He has no need of your person and your patience, but He watches how you operate. Are you honest about your claim or are you lying? The lover, the muhib, keeps nothing in his own possession. He hands everything over to his beloved. So when we talk about mahabba al-ilahiyya, right, love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means not holding anything back. It means giving everything. It's a comprehensive mahabba. And a comprehensive mahabba means that you have to give everything. You don't say, hold a little back for yourself or for somebody else. No. When we're talking about the divine, it's giving all of you. So this taslim, right? Yusallim. So loving and possess, he hands everything over to his beloved. Loving and possessing are incompatible, right? التملك والمحبة لا يجتمعان. The lover of the Lord of Truth, who is sincere, sadiq about his love or her love, will surrender to him his own self, his wealth and his future, his aqibah, and will give up his freedom of choice where he and others are concerned. So to choose what Allah chooses, to love what Allah loves, to not have, as he says, he will harbor no suspicion about his way of handling things. So the idea of saying, why are things this way? Why did this person get the raise and I didn't get the raise? Or why is this happening this way? Or why is this thing happening for this person? This is happening to me. These we say casually, or we think them casually, but they are ittahamat. They're actually raising suspicion about Allah's decree and why and so forth. That doesn't mean if something happens that is disagreeable that there's some course of action that you can take. Certainly you can. But to have this idea of doubt and accusation of why it was allowed to happen in the first place, this is what we would call a type of tuhma, raising suspicion against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And certainly the one who is the object of your love, you would not raise suspicions about. So he also says he will harbor no suspicion about his way of handling things, Allah's way. He will not try to hurry him or accuse him of being tight-fisted, right? Istajal, like al-istajal for dua. Oh, I've made this dua like 100 times. It's not forthcoming yet. So you don't like Allah's timetable? You don't like the schedule that He has you on? Or you feel like, oh, this is kind of nice, but it's not enough. Why can't I have more? This is what he means of tubakhiluhu, of you accuse him of being tight-fisted. This is wrong. Some people of Ahl Kitab in the Quran, they said, Yadullahi maghlula, right? They accuse him of being tight-fisted. بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَتَانِ يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ, right? Both his hands are outstretched. يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ in the way that he sees fit. So, seeing Allah as not giving you enough or not giving you a right and what's coming to you or what you're entitled to or what you deserve and all these things, these are all ittahamat. These are all tuham. These are all accusations that you may harbor inside your heart for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but certainly you cannot claim to love Him in the manner that is desired and requested if you are harboring these sorts of accusations in your heart. And I'll just finish with one last part here, section, a couple paragraphs down. where he says, Ya Ghulam, or before that, he says, هذا القلب إذا عرف الحق عز وجل وأحبه وقرب منه يستوحش من الخلق والكون إليهم. Should be والركون, I think, إليهم. يستوحش من أكله وشربه ولباسه ونكاحه. يستوحش من العمران ويهيم على وجهه إلى الخراب. لا يقيده شيء سوى أمر الشرع. يقيده في الأمر والنهي والفعل. يقيده إلى أوقات مجيء القدر. وما لا تدعنا من يد رحمتك فنغرق في بحر الدنيا وبحر الوجود يا مانح الكرم والآراء السابقة أدركنا. يا غلام من لا يعمل بما أقول لا يفهم ما أقول فإذا عمل فهم. إذا لم تحسن الظن بي ولا تؤمن بما أقول ولا تعمل به كيف تفهم. So he says, this heart, which knows a lot of truth and loves him and draws near to him, becomes estranged from creatures and from being at ease with them. It recoils from its food, its drink, its clothing, and its marital relations. It feels distaste for civilization and wanders off toward deserted places. This may happen like a literal sense, but what is sought and desired is a detachment, or I should say an indifference. And so you will still love other things. You'll still love your spouse and your children and the good of this world and things like that. But all that will be via the prism of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will not be independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like when the Quran says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونِ فَاتَّبِعُونِ اللَّهَ يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, if you truly love me, then love Allah and His Prophet, and Allah will love you. So it's as if the love of the Prophet is the same as the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not two separate things, because we have the love of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam via the prism of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so should be all other things that we love. And that's sort of an independent love. And what that means is, if your love of something else is going to distract you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's going to draw you away from Him, then you're not seeing it via the same set of lenses, not through the same prism. And then you have to question the nature of your love for that thing. Because if it's going to cause you to make a fitna for you and move you away from your deen, then you have to question the manner by which you love that thing. And that's why tu'thir Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you prefer Him, put Him above all else, Azza wa Jal. And then the thing that it says here that I wanted just to emphasize on the top of page 248. Oh, young man, anyone who does not put what I say into practice cannot understand what I say. When he puts it into practice, he will understand. What that means is, these are a'mal, or ulum, let's call them ulum, dhawqiyya. These are knowledges that come by way of dhawq, that come by the way of tasting them. And how do you get to them? By al-amal, right? So there are certain spiritual practices, in other words, following the sunnah, endeavoring to be as sincere as you can in the following of that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, will open up doors for you and will open up things that you didn't know before. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ مَنْ عَمِلَ بِمَا عَلِمَ أَوْرَثَ اللَّهُ عِلْمَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. Have taqwa of Allah, and Allah will give you knowledge of these things. Whoever puts into practice that which they know, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them knowledge of that which they do not know. So sometimes this is referred to as al-ilm al-ladunni, or al-ilm al-wahbi, or al-ilm al-ilhami. Ilm al-ladunni means its meanings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts into your heart directly. Min ladunillah, yani from directly from Allah. Ilm al-wahbi, that which Allah yahibu ilayk, He gives it to you, directly to you. Al-ilm al-ilhami, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires to you and puts it in your heart. So the key to those and to seek them out is to seek out Allah, not to seek those things out. So seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah, in your path, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, those who struggle and strive for us, then we will show them our way, and they will be guided to that way. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam wa a'lam. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.